Hi everyone, welcome to Florida Coastal School of Law's webinar on military and veteran support in law school. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm really excited about this webinar. If all of the attendees can kind of just type something into your little chat bar on the side and let me know that you can hear me and that we don't have any audio issues, that would be great. You can also just let me know where you're from too, so we can kind of have an idea of who's joining us today and from where. That'd be awesome. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm not getting any feedback yet. Okay, well, there's no notes that you can't hear me. Oh, perfect. Marcus is from Hawaii. Excellent. Great. So you can hear us all the way in Hawaii. That's awesome. Brooke from Maryland. Welcome, guys. Thank you so much for joining. So today we have a wide variety of speakers. First, we have Bridget Waynes, who is our Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs here at Florida Coastal, and she's also our VA rep on campus. She's going to talk a little bit about some of the support that our school offers for our military and veteran students. We have a great yellow ribbon program, and we have a vet team that really encourages on-campus inclusion and participation from our military and veteran students and the staff to help support those students. Then we have Professor Jim Kane, who is an adjunct professor and veteran himself. We have a current student who is in her first year here at Coastal, and she is Army National Guard. And finally, we have Lieutenant Nick Smith, who's a JAG officer in Jacksonville at one of our local bases. And he'll talk a little bit about some of the JAG opportunities for students attending law school. So if you have any questions at any point during any of the presentations, please don't hesitate to just type them into the chat bar, and any of our presenters would be happy to answer those, in addition to going over their prepared remarks. So this is really for all of you attending and thinking about law school, so please don't be afraid to ask those questions that come to mind. And with that, I will switch over my slides here and turn it over to Bridget.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Like Megan said, my name is Bridget Waynes. I'm the Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs and the VA Certifying Official. I'm going to give you an overview of the process to receive VA benefits available, and our Veterans Enhancement Team involvement. Your first step is to apply for benefits through the VA through their eBenefits Vaughn app, Veterans Online Application website. The VA determines your eligibility for benefits. A letter of eligibility is then forwarded to you from the VA, which details your eligibility for benefits. In order for us to process your benefits, you will need to ensure that we have a copy of your DD-214 and a copy of your letter of eligibility that you would have received from the VA. For those veterans that may be eligible for vocational rehabilitation, we will need a copy of your DD-214 and a copy of your authorization form 1905. We will complete an electronic certification in the VA system. Your funds will then be dispersed within 90 days from your initial certification. After that time, prior to each term, we will do your certifications automatically, which will allow you to receive your funds sooner. This is a screen that I wanted to show you where we actually go into the VA's electronic website. It's called VA Once. On here, we would submit your enrollment verification using their electronic system here, as you see. We certify the number of credits you are taking, whether you are a resident or via distance education, tuition and fees, and whether you are a full-time or part-time status. We then await the benefits from the VA via electronic funds transfer. Like I said before, your eligibility is determined by the VA and is based on the amount of time that you have served in the military as well as the time period that you were in the military. Currently, our students use the following chapters. Chapter 30 is for active duty. Chapter 31 is for vocational rehabilitation. Chapter 33 is the post 9/11 GI Bill. And then there's the Chapter 33 yellow ribbon where you must have 100% eligibility, and if you do have that, your tuition and fees will be fully covered by VA and FCSL with a matching program. Chapter 35 is for survivors and dependents, and Chapter 1606 and 1607 are reserved. As we stated before, we have a Veterans Enhancement Team. The team is a core team of administration, faculty, staff, and student representatives that meet monthly during the academic year to ensure that prospective and current veteran students have a positive or a good coastal experience. We sponsor events throughout the year specifically for veterans to connect, network, and share their law school experience. We also have a military law society that participates in public service projects, guest speakers, and networking opportunities. Our team has created a website specifically geared to VA students. Please visit this site. My contact information is, my email address is bwaines, is BWAINES @scsl.edu, or I can be reached by telephone at 904-680-7780.
Thanks so much, Bridget. That was definitely a helpful overview of some of the support from the VA team, as well as the steps to take in order to get those VA benefits. Does anyone have any questions specifically for Bridget? Okay, well, I'm actually going to put her email address up here in the chat bar. So if anyone does have any questions that come up, don't hesitate to send her an email, and my email will be up here at the end as well. So I guess we'll turn it over now to Professor Jim Kane, who will give you an idea of a little bit what it was like for him to go from being a military or a veteran into law school, and then what it's been like to transition then out of law school and into his current profession in law and teaching, and I'll let him take it from there.
Thank you, Bridget. This is Jim Kane. I hope everybody can hear me, and maybe just as the earlier speaker did, do me a favor just so I know that you're out there, and maybe if a couple of you could just type your branch, rank, duty assignment, whatever you want, just so I know I'm not talking to my dead phone. I'm doing this from my government job at Department of Homeland Security, so I sort of doubt I have digital, or video, I mean, because I had some trouble earlier. So if people can actually, in fact, see me, let me know that too before I do anything goofy. So without further ado, let me talk a little bit about my experience. And it is very similar to yours. I was a National Guard First Lieutenant of Infantry when I literally left my annual training, drove to the University of South Carolina, found a place to stay in one day, and then went to law school orientation. I think I still had Fort Bragg dirt on my under my fingernails when I got to law school orientation. Some good things in general I want to say about Florida Coastal and Jacksonville. Very supportive law school as far as veterans, and I know Bridget spoke to the Military Law Society, great group. I've had an opportunity to speak to them about some experiences I've had, and I would encourage you all to link up with them because they're really a good organization. You're in a great town. Jacksonville's a military town. Sorry for you Army guys I'm seeing pop up. It's kind of a little bit of a Navy town, but that's okay. They sort of will support all veterans, and so that's a good thing. So let me get to the point of really what I wanted to talk about. What is it like coming to law school with someone with at least some military experience? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? How did I adjust? And I'm really going to focus on law school because really I find law school changes you, and really once I got into practice, you know, my background in the military really didn't have a huge effect on practice. I ultimately left the infantry and became a JAG and have practiced for various agencies and in private practice for 28 years. So I really want to focus on law school a little bit. So hey, first thing, you come to law school with like a lot of perspective. and by perspective, a lot of your classmates are going to be scared to death. And you're going to be a little bit scared too, but coming from the military, I'll never forget, I was sitting there in my property class with this very intimidating property professor, and I kind of caught myself and thought, you know what, he's not going to drop and make me do 20 push-ups. There is no obstacle course he can make me run. He's not going to be able to order me to put on my rucksack and do a 12-mile march, and he's probably not going to curse me out. And so, now I know it's a new military, and maybe some of you didn't have any of those experiences because it's maybe changed a little bit since when I started the military in 1980. But by perspective, I think it allows you to understand. And of course, you guys, many of you probably have more perspective because, of course, although I ultimately deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan late in my career, when I was a company grade officer all the way up to field grade, my first deployment was a lieutenant colonel, and I suspect many of you have deployed. And talk about putting law school in perspective once you've deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. It just gives you a healthy sense of, yes, this is important, but, I don't have to worry about anybody getting hurt or maimed while I'm here. Learning. You guys may not think of it this way, but military organizations require you to continuously learn. So even though you may have been a few years away from formal academia, you never stop learning in the military. Military is constant learning, and so you're going to have that huge advantage in that you have not forgotten how to learn and you've been continuously required to learn. This one is kind of an interesting one. Law schools are systems. If you think about law school as an organization or a system, there's new sets of rules, there's new sets of norms, there's things that work, and there's things that don't work. And one of the neat things about the military, whatever branch you're in the various organizations within a military, they all have systems. If you think about every time you went to a new unit or every time you went to a new school, you had to figure out what the norms were. What did I need to do to excel? What did I need to do to stay out of trouble? What were the expectations? And so you all have like finely attuned radar to, I remember, I would always think in terms of the threat. What's the threat? And so you guys are going to be very good at that and figuring out the law school system, and that's very powerful. I think a final good thing that you guys have coming in that's going to be really valuable is you cannot be in the military for the most part without a good degree of common sense and practicality. Law school can get very confusing and it can get very esoteric. Try to hold on to your common sense and keep asking yourself why things matter and what people are trying to tell you. It's really important. The longer you can hold on to that common sense, the better you're going to be. One caution and then one plea. You guys are going to be very good at figuring out systems, and you're going to see some things about the law school system that may look like they're counterintuitive or they're not adding value. I would ask you to just give it a little bit of a chance. There's a method behind a lot of the madness in law school, and even though you guys are experts at figuring out what needs to happen and the most efficient paths and systems, give it a little bit of a chance before you sort of decide that you've got it better figured out than the culture, and really give the culture a chance. That's the one caution I would have, because you have so many advantages in figuring out norms and systems. I would hesitate, just be a little slow to use it. And then the final thing I would just from a plea is, help your buddy. Not just your military buddies, but help the other classmates that you have. You're going to make a lot of friends, and some of them are not going to have your common sense and your perspective of what you're exactly getting into. And I think they're going to really appreciate the calmness and the clarity you can kind of bring to the fight. And so I would ask you to do that maybe for everyone. And that's really all I have. I would be more than happy. I'm going to provide my email. It's jim.caine, C-A-I-N-E, at letc.dhs. And for all you military people, I'll put on a brief show. That's Foxtrot, Lima, Echo, Tango, Charlie, Delta Hotel Sierra. So I guess I don't have any questions, and I'll just stay on until the end. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Professor Kane. I think I got your email correct there, and I posted it for everyone to see that. Does anyone have any questions for Professor Kane? Okay, I guess I just have a couple. I know, Professor, you mentioned that you came straight from Fort Bragg and you pretty much had the dirt under your nails, so to speak. Were you still active duty when you started law school, or had you already been discharged at that point?
Well, I was a reservist, of course, so I was theoretically, I think I had been discharged from my 2 weeks of active duty, although I may have been on pass for a day, but basically I did not have the experience that some of the people in the group have, where literally they're changing their whole life from military to civilian at the same time they're starting a law school. I was already a civilian and was just coming from in the National Guard, you have 2 weeks annual training, and we were doing a field exercise at Fort Bragg, and I actually got dismissed early so that I could make orientation.
Okay, great, thank you. And one last question then. You mentioned so many qualities and skills that our military students are able to carry with them from being in the military into law school. I guess in addition to some of those things, were you able to parlay some of your knowledge or interests, I guess, in law school? Did you study anything in relation to the military or that type of law at all, or did you go a completely different path?
It is really funny. I went a completely different path initially, but I ultimately circled back, and I guess that deserves a bit of explanation. I was an infantry guy, and I really liked going out in the woods with guys with rifles and blowing things up and pretending to shoot at people, and it was like camping plus, and it was really kind of neat. And law school for me was a totally different experience, and unlike some of maybe the active duty people, I continued my military through law school. In fact, you guys are going to laugh at this, but in South Carolina in 1984, my monthly rent was $170, which my 1 weekend a month drill check as a first lieutenant just about covered for me. So I was going off and doing my weekend duty, and it was paying for my rent. So that was kind of interesting. But no, in law school, South Carolina didn't have any kind of veterans group, didn't have some of the neat classes that Florida Coastal has on, say, military law or veterans law. And I may well have taken that if it had been available, but it wasn't. And so I found myself kind of just going down a traditional commercial law kind of path. Now, having said that, what I think is funny is after being an infantry officer a few more years, I ultimately found my way into the JAG Corps, and then I sort of did have a bit more of a merger of the things I learned in law school and the things I was doing in the military. A couple of other points. One, administrative. There's a .gov after DHS on my email, and I'm sorry, I was making such a show of spelling out, let's see, forgot the .gov. And then the other thing I realized that I really hadn't done justice to is the military and the people you're coming in who are veterans like you, and the people you meet in the Military Law Society, and the people, if you go in the reserves, you'll meet there. I think like maybe 75% of the civilian legal jobs I've gotten in my life were a direct result of a military contact or someone I made. So one of the really cool things about the military is it's a great inroads to some networking, because you've got something in common with people, you can talk about it, you can make friends, and then you just never know. I mean, it's really weird how fate will sprinkle your friends around, and then fate will make you decide you want to move from one state to another, and all of a sudden somebody will be in a position to help you. And so, hold on to your military friends, make new ones, because it's an incredible source of networking.
That's a really great point. Yes.
Hey, questions you didn't even ask.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for adding that extra piece and your background as well.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I guess I just want to touch on one quick thing and we'll transition then to our next presenter. Professor Kane mentioned some of the opportunities here at Coastal for military law, the Military Law Society, also that Dean Waynes mentioned. Those are great ways to use your background and practice that type of law. There are so many things that you can do in law school and once you graduate, and it can be in that area. And you could work in our Veterans Collaborative and help veterans who need pro bono legal assistance, and that's a really great way to give back as well. But you can also take a completely different path, and you can do corporate law, like Professor Kane mentioned. You could do business, you could do entertainment law. It's really wide open, and no one has to be pigeonholed into a specific area just because of their background as well. So that's always good to keep an open mind. And you never know where your paths will take you. Like Professor Kane said, things sort of fall in your lap and new opportunities arise too. So with that, I'll turn it over to our current student, Amanda Spear, and she is actually just joining us out of a final, so congratulations to her for getting out of that. Hopefully that went well. Thank you so much for taking your time to join us now. So like I said, she's a current first-year student, and she's Army National Guard. So Amanda, if you can just kind of give us a little bit of your background and tell us about your experience here at Coastal, that'd be great.
All right, can you hear me? I don't know, can I be heard? Yes, hopefully.
Yes, Amanda, I can hear you. You're good.
Okay. Okay, so I am a part of the Indiana Army National Guard. I am an E5, so I'm sergeant. I've been in for a little over 5 years, and I transitioned from active duty last year as far as being on Title 10 orders, and then coming off of that and coming to law school. I did make the big move from Indiana to Florida, so that's been interesting in itself. A little bit about me, I'm a 92 Golf in the Army. I've always known I would come to law school and eventually become a JAG officer, so there's that. I've deployed to Kuwait in 2013. I worked in the IBA warehouse in LSA, and last year I was part of the United States Army Soldier Show, and I was a singer and dancer professionally for the Army. I got to travel the world and go to multiple posts, and it was a really good experience. As far as my experience here at Coastal, it's been really great. As soon as you realize the veteran population and your fellow students and everything like that, the school sets you guys up for success. They automatically have a veterans lunch, and so if you've served in the past or you're currently serving, they provided lunch, and they just made this a venue for everyone to introduce themselves and to just show you that you're not alone as far as being a veteran and a law student, and that's really awesome in itself. As far as the opportunities here for veterans, you have the Veteran Law Society, which I am a member of, and we do multiple things to support veterans here in the community as well as our students and just in general. And then we have the legal clinic, which I'm not too familiar with because I am a 1L and you're not allowed to do clinics. And just the support system in general. The staff here is great. I know I was having a little bit of issues getting my post 9/11 GI Bill confirmed as far as my attendance here at Florida Coastal, but Ms. Waynes was amazing and ensured me every step of the way that things were being taken care of. And you know, I started receiving my stipend in a good time. So as far as that goes, that's all been great. I will say by far, Florida Coastal is one of the main things that attracted me to Florida Coastal was the fact that they were so veteran friendly. And I think this year they've been, confirmed to be like one of the most veteran friendly schools in the nation. So that is definitely something that veterans want to look to when they are looking to see what law school they'd like to go to. Anything else? Did I miss anything?
That's helpful. Thanks, Amanda. And you definitely have an impressive background. Does anyone have any specific questions for Amanda? Being that she's so fresh into this from where you guys were as well, just moving into the transition into law school. Anything specific for her? No? Okay, well, if anything comes up, feel free to type it into the sidebar. I think Amanda's going to hang out with us for a few more minutes here. And then I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Nick Smith, who is a current JAG officer, and he will talk about some of the opportunities available for military students to move into the JAG program and what that's like.
Hey, so I'll ask Nancy, could everyone hear me okay? All right, so I got one yes, so I'm assuming it's good to go. So my name is Lieutenant Nick Smith. I am an active duty Navy JAG officer, currently stationed at Naval Air Station Jacksonville. What I do right now is a little bit unique and brand new. I support victims of sexual assault, so that has become, for good reason, a very, very hot topic in the United States military over the last 3 years or so. And in response to the issue, they have created a new position for JAG officers, which had never existed before, in which we are detailed to represent victims as they navigate the process of an investigation and, in some cases, ultimate prosecution of their case. So it's been quite a learning experience because, as I said, they stood it up quick, and suddenly, as happens in the military, you're given orders to report for a new job, and that's exactly what happened for me. I found out about the job while I was actually on deployment in Afghanistan via sort of a cryptic email, and that's what I do. Prior to that, my first tour, I was a defense counsel, so I worked as a defense attorney for active duty and reservists in the Marine Corps, Navy, and occasionally the Coast Guard. We offered support to them in the Southeast because they are a somewhat smaller service. And I worked in legal assistance before that. I did powers of attorney, wills, divorce consultation, a lot of odds and ends. Anyone who's been in the military knows that landlord-tenant relationships are sometimes tricky and difficult to navigate. And so I spent a good bit of time working through those issues. And anytime a sailor or a dependent family member had a unique legal issue pop up that they'd like a lawyer to take a look at, they could come to me and get support. So it's been a great job. After that, I was a staff judge advocate for a base recruit training command where our enlisted sailors go through up in Chicago. Did that for a few years, and that was a tremendous experience. And then went to Afghanistan for the better part of the year and worked at the prison facility there in Part 1 province. So anytime that what we call a high-value detainee was brought in by our service members, we handled the legal aspects of their detention and the due process we afforded to them. So that was a very interesting experience. So I very much enjoyed it. I'm at about year 6 of my time in the United States Navy, and it's a wonderful opportunity. So explanations and opportunities available in the JAG Corps. For any questions on the basic details of the application process and what to expect, I really encourage you all to check out www.jag.navy.mil/careers. And we have a wonderful website that is set up and does a really strong job of explaining how the process works. That is that you would apply first for what's called a professional recommendation in your second year or third year at 2 different junctures. So there's a fall application and a spring application. And you'd undergo some interviews and some questions and submission of your law school transcripts. And then you would be professionally recommended to join the Navy JAG Corps. And then after that, you would go through the process of actually applying to be an officer in the United States Navy, and that's the medical piece and all that kind of stuff. So that's it's a lengthy process, and I encourage you to start doing the research now because it takes time and a good bit of effort, but it's totally worth it. I do get the question a lot. How hard is it? Will I get in? What do I do if I get rejected? I will tell you that I went to law school. I did well in law school, and I thought I was a really strong candidate for the JAG Corps. And I did not get selected the first time, and I was very disappointed. But luckily, I had someone involved who was a big supporter of mine and said, Nick, don't quit. And I didn't, and applied twice, and I got it on the second look. And when Navy JAG says they're not kidding about keep applying, don't give up, they're not just blowing smoke. They're serious. So for anyone out there who goes through this process and finds themselves disappointed, I encourage you, don't quit, keep applying, and keep your grades up. So that's how the process worked for me. Lots of different jobs exist now, and it's pretty breathtaking, actually. As I said, I was a defense counsel. I worked in legal assistance. I do the job I have now, which is working with victims, which is new. Obviously, we have prosecutors, the counterparts to the defense counsel that I was a couple years ago. And then we have just lots of very kind of random novel jobs out there too. Obviously, you can find yourself on a ship. There will typically in a carrier be 2 JAGs who are assigned to the carrier, and then a 3rd JAG who will typically be advising the admiral and the strike group. So those jobs are there. There are JAGs who end up on other types of ships out to sea on deployment. There are folks who end up in far-flung places doing what's called rule of law engagement. So they're advising other countries on how to improve their rule of law based on what we do as a country. Lots of different deployment opportunities have come up in the last 10 years or so. Those are winding down as we've exited Iraq, and we have started to pretty much withdraw from Afghanistan, but they're still out there. Those deployment opportunities are still there. So those jobs exist, and then there's quite a bit of work that exists for those who are interested in doing more policy. So each time Congress, I think today, President Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act for 2016, and that's how the military gets its money. And that will create quite a bit of new policy, lots of changes in my world. So we have a lot of JAGs who spend a lot of time analyzing new laws, new statutes, new administrative code, all sorts of stuff, in an effort to hone what's necessary for us to do our job. So there's a lot of work there. We have a lot of JAGs who are assigned to the appellate codes. So in the military justice system, we have an appeals process, just like on the civilian side. We have JAGs who are assigned in DC who assist with the intermediary and highest court in our system, which is the Court of Appeals for the Armed Forces. So those jobs are there. Trying to think if there are any other jobs out there that are really novel and cool, but I can't think of any off the top of my head, but they're there. The SEALs have JAGs, and I get that question a lot. The Navy SEALs have JAGs, and they do. So those folks do some pretty, what they call high-speed work. So pretty cool jobs there. I've met those guys, men and women, a number of times, and they have really much cooler stories than I do. And those are the career opportunities. And then finally, I'll touch on this again, the overview of the application process. I reviewed it today. It has not changed since I did it, and it's kind of a bifurcated process. The first piece being the application to join the JAG Corps, in which you are professionally recommended by the Navy JAG Corps and you are selected to be a JAG. So that is up front, and that takes place when you're still a student. Second piece, once you're professionally recommended, is actually the process of becoming an officer in the United States Navy. So you would go through the medical workup, background checks, and everything associated with that. So that's also a lengthy process. But during that time, you do have the assistance of a recruiting officer who will assist you and answer questions for you and get things done for you. And from what I've told, the process is much smoother now than it had been in years past. So they've done a good job with that. And then ultimately, I have a question here. I can certainly talk to
Lieutenant Smith, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. We lost your sound, so we're not sure what you said to answer the question that came up about sending some materials or some handouts. If you could just try to click the mic button and turn it off and turn it back on, we'll see if that works, and hopefully we can get your sound back on. We did hear most of what you said, though, so that's good. It's not working right now. Okay, Lieutenant Smith, I think you can still hear us. So what we're going to do is, if you can just hold on a second, I'll try to get you back on with audio. But in the meantime, I did have another question for Amanda. If we can bring Amanda back for a minute here, we'll do that. Amanda, hopefully you're still there. You can hear me then. So I know you talked a little bit about some of the strength that Florida Coastal has in its support, and how you've really felt supported and like a family here with the other military and veteran students once you reached Florida Coastal. And you mentioned the military friendly designation, which we did just receive recently. So that's definitely a bonus for us as well. And a lot of our incoming students can now see that we are military friendly. But when you joined Coastal fall of 2015, we did not have that designation yet. And I was just wondering what some of the other drawing points for you were in choosing Florida Coastal over some other schools that I'm sure you had some choices to go anywhere in the country, and you did choose a school far away, you know, from Indiana down here to Florida. So what was it, I guess, that drew you to Coastal specifically? And maybe we lost Amanda as well. Okay, everyone, I'm so sorry about that. Let's go back and see if we can get Lieutenant Smith back on. I apologize, everyone. All right, well, we have Lieutenant Smith's visual, not audio. Okay, so what we're going to do is, since we're actually in the same office today, I'll have Lieutenant Smith come here and sit in my spot, and he'll finish up the rest of his comments to you. And if you have any questions for Lieutenant Smith, then go ahead and ask there. So I'll step away and have Lieutenant Smith sit right here. I again apologize, everyone.
All right. I'm used to this.
All right, so I am back. Moved offices here. So I think where I left off, and I won't go on too much about it because I don't want to take up too much more time about it. But the process of applying, once you are professionally recommended, and once you have secured your commission, what we call the commission, in the United States Navy, and you raise your hand and you take the oath. Then you are in the training pipeline. So you are going to be headed off to training in Newport, Rhode Island, following the bar. And that is a 5-week program up there at what we call Officer Development School, which is adjacent to the Officer Commissioning School, which where we call the line officers go. So the folks will be flying the planes and driving the boats. They will be there. And so it's a 5-week program where it's a basic indoctrination course on life in the military. There's a physical component to it, a lot of learning about the military, the Navy, its traditions. And so that is Navy specific, and 5 weeks. And it's a wonderful time. I mean, I look back on it, I miss it. It was great. Then after that, typically, provided you've successfully passed the bar, you'll move on to Naval Justice School, which is a 10-week program, also in Newport, Rhode Island. So you usually will have a small break and then head back up for Naval Justice School. And that is where you're learning about the Navy, naval justice, about military justice in the process. So we have that again in Newport, Rhode Island. 10 weeks, full days, 8 to 5. And you're in a classroom setting, and there's some practical components to it. But it's great. Really enjoyed that. And then thereafter, after that 15 or so weeks of training, hopefully you're good to go and you will report into your duty station. So at some point in that 15-week process, you're going to be asked for input on where you would like to go. And they may say, great, or they may say, thank you for the input. You're headed to another place that you've never heard of. But it's part of the adventure. So it's been great. I've been in Jacksonville, Chicago, Afghanistan, and Jacksonville again. So you can always be pretty sure you're going to be somewhat close to the water in the Navy, and so it's a good time. Any other questions for anybody? I think I've hit my bullet points here. Okay, we have 2 questions from here, so I'll start with those. First question: were you in the military when you started law school? Answer is no, I wasn't. So the bulk of the lawyers who are going to be Navy JAG officers come through what's called the student program. And the student program is just like what I went through. So you apply while you're in law school and you're selected in law school. There is also the direct commission program, and from what I'm hearing, that's becoming more sought after. And those are folks who are considered subject matter experts or have been practicing for a number of years that have talent that the Navy needs at that time. And in fact, one of the guys I was just on the phone today with went to Florida Coastal and is now an active duty JAG officer who applied after a few years in the state attorney's office. So those both roads are open to you. Second question, did you know you wanted to be a JAG when you first applied to law school? The answer is no. I came from a strong military background in my family. The vast majority of my family had served. But actually, my best friend who went to Montana Law School got in, and we've always been pretty competitive, and he said, you should think about it. And I said, well, of course, if you got it, I want it. And that's how it all started. It was pretty random. Most of the people I know in the JAG Corps probably did not intend to join the JAG Corps. They checked out the website, or they did the internship, or they knew someone who did it, or they were looking for something that was a little bit off the beaten path, and that's how they came in. Some people are the opposite. Some people knew exactly what they wanted and started early. So lots of different backgrounds and experiences in the JAG Corps right now.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you. It was great talking to you all.
All right, and I'm back. So thank you again so much to Lieutenant Smith for that, and I apologize to the attendees for that audio issue there. That covers it for all of our presenters today. Does anyone have any lingering questions then for any of our presenters? Okay, and I think I got this website address right that Lieutenant Smith mentioned if you want to check out some more information about the JAG programs. Hopefully that is the correct address, and you guys can check that out as well. If there are no further questions right now, then I'll slide it over to my contact information. I am an admissions counselor here at Florida Coastal, so I can help with the admissions side of law school. Any questions that you have about law school in general or Florida Coastal specifically, please don't hesitate to contact me. If you have any questions for our presenters, then I would also be happy to pass those questions along or get you in contact with those individuals. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we all really appreciate all the presenters' time. Amanda, thank you for joining us even right after your exam, and I wish you the best of luck on that. I hope everyone has a great day.